A decade passed, an unforeseen wave of plague surged across the globe, transforming the populace into grotesque shadows of their former selves, zombies. Consequently, the tapestry of human existence unraveled, plunging society into a tumultuous abyss. Chaos reigned supreme, as skirmishes erupted in every corner. Individuals turned against one another, vying for dwindling resources or to seize makeshift refuges. Some even resorted to murder as a source of amusement. Along the East Lapis Road, a grim tableau unfolded, littered with the lifeless bodies of victims, dispatched in unspeakably brutal manners. Enter our protagonist, Yangon Jing, a mere 20 years of age, yet burdened by the weight of his experiences. Now, astride his motorcycle, he traversed a bridge, his mind focused on a daunting task: subjugate the notorious Shaba gang. Abruptly, weariness washed over him, and in a fleeting moment of slumber, he awoke just in time to confront a harrowing sight: a metal tripwire poised at neck height. Unable to react in time, he collided with it, sending his motorcycle careening off course. Yendon tumbled onto the asphalt, while the conspirators who had set the trap emerged from their vehicle, reveling in their perceived triumph over yet another victim. "Looks like we've bagged ourselves a prize," one jeered, while another, the gang leader, patted him on the back, proclaiming that their steel wire had never failed them. Yet, as they scrutinized Yangon's attire, their mockery turned to confusion. Could this seemingly affluent figure truly hearken from the illustrious Dawn City? They resolved to search his bike for valuables, but a cursory examination yielded nothing of worth. Frustration bubbled over, prompting one of the gang members to curse the fortune that had led them to a barren hole amid the world's descent into madness. Just then, fate twisted once more. A gang member leapt from the truck, a gleeful grin spread across his face as he raised a machete above his head, preparing to deliver the final blow. But in a heartbeat, a blinding flash erupted, and blood gushed forth as his arm was severed from his body. His severed head landed with sickening finality in the gang leader's hands, who gawked in shock, only to witness his comrade's lifeless form collapsing to the ground. "Who the hell are you?" the gang leader spat, struggling to comprehend the turn of events. Yangon, adjusting his suit with an air of nonchalance, calmly inquired whether they were indeed the butchers responsible for the massacre at the East Lapis Road camp. The gang leaders smirked, unapologetically boasting of their heinous deeds, including the despicable treatment of the camp's women and children. Upon hearing their confessions, Yangon's demeanor shifted. Initially intent on a painless resolution, he now promised them a fate steeped in torment. The gang leader, rattled, barked orders to his underlings to eliminate this unexpected threat. Gunfire erupted, yet Yangon merely extended his hand, effortlessly slowing the projectiles as they ricocheted harmlessly off his suit. The gang leader, incredulous, fumbled for his own weapon, his anger boiling over. He fired a shot that struck Yangon squarely in the forehead, causing him to tilt back momentarily, but the protagonist remained upright, unfazed. The bullet had only grazed his resilience, inflicting a mere 10 units of damage. Stunned, the gang leader declared this impossible. "Now it's my turn," Yangon asserted, brandishing a sword and unleashing a bullet that zipped past the gang members' heads before he vanished in a flash. He reappeared, slicing the bullet in two, leaving the gang in awe. Suddenly, one of the members screamed in agony, his hand engulfed in blue flames that spread rapidly, consuming him whole. Chaos ensued as the remaining gang members ignited in a similar inferno, the gang leader's pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears as Yangon coolly walked past him, advising him to relay his regrets to the king of the underworld. With the task completed, he sheathed his sword and donned sunglasses, the system announcing his rewards: 2 level points. Revving his bike, Yangon sped down the road, commanding the system to allocate his points to enhance his vehicle. The system complied, upgrading it to Hellfire specifications, effectively doubling its speed. He tore through the flooded terrain, his bike gliding effortlessly over the water, reminiscent of a phoenix rising from the ashes. A flashback to a year prior, Yangon had been accosted by 2 thugs who claimed dominion over the land, their audacity blinding them to the reality of survival. After a brutal exchange, he was left battered by the shore, contemplating the encroaching threat of the Fong family. Suddenly, the system materialized before him, heralding the arrival of the Doomsday System, complete with a status window detailing his attributes and initial title, Cleansing. A new mission unfolded, instructing him to exterminate 20 zombies for additional level points. As night fell, he ascended a tree, munching on fruit while pondering the absurdity of his predicament. In the midst of his slumber, an acrid odor pierced through the veil of sleep, rousing him abruptly. His eyes fluttered open, a sense of dread gnawing at him as he glanced downward. To his dismay, the very tree trunk upon which he had been resting was now a blazing inferno. Nearby, a group of men stood ominously, their voices laced with a foreboding satisfaction as they reminded him of their prior warnings, admonitions he had brazenly dismissed. The repercussions of disregarding the Fong family's counsel had come home to roost. A dark veil of realization cloaked his thoughts. He had foolishly underestimated their threat. A surge of fury ignited within him. If the Fong family persisted in their existence, then peace would remain an elusive dream for individuals like him. Rising to his feet, he unsheathed a knife, mentally declaring that they had precipitated this confrontation. Suddenly, one of the men pondered aloud about the peculiar tree by the shore, questioning its presence. His comrade shrugged it off, dismissing their oversight and insisting that they would soon incinerate it and the fool who dared to remain there. In that instant, the idiot leapt from the flaming tree, knife raised high, and with a brutal swing, cleaved his own body in half. The second man stood transfixed in shock, only to recover and draw a firearm concealed beneath his trousers. The protagonist charged forward just as a shot rang out, the bullet whizzing past him. In a swift retaliation, he plunged his knife into the assailant's chest, forcing the gun from his trembling grasp. The man's lifeless form slumped onto the sandy terrain, and the protagonist turned his gaze back to the smoldering tree, a silent acknowledgement of gratitude directed at the Fong family for the stark reminder he was far better off without their interference. They had ignited his tree today, but in the future, he would lay waste to their empire. Time elapsed as he traversed the rugged mountains, dispatching several zombies and ascending to level 3, earning 6 points as a reward for his endeavors. Among his ill-gotten gains were a tattered jacket, ripped sweatpants, and battered sneakers, an underwhelming haul for a morning spent hunting the undead. Yet, he also acquired 35 rounds for an 11.43mm pistol. Clenching his fist in determination, he reflected on the positive aspect. Leveling up had enhanced his abilities, making the battle against zombies substantially more manageable than before. And now at level 3, his attributes in strength, speed, endurance, and mental resilience had each increased by 3. However, his resistance to other forms of attack remained stagnant at 0. With 6 level points at his disposal, he navigated the system window to don the ragged garments salvaged from the fallen zombies, then gripped the pistol firmly. 3 points remained, and he pondered the necessity of bolstering his power in this treacherous world, a realm not solely inhabited by ordinary zombies but also monstrous, furious creatures of greater strength and cunning. These formidable adversaries operated on an entirely different level, with some possessing abilities that rendered his current weaponry ineffective. The system prompted him regarding the possibility of upgrading his firearm, to which he acquiesced, spending 1 point. A new window materialized, indicating the successful enhancement of his gun, now infused with a 50% damage increase. He invested 2 additional points, transforming it into a superior weapon that boasted improved penetration and range. To upgrade to an ancient marksman's gun, he required 3 more points. Such an upgrade would amplify damage, range, and penetration by an astounding 200%, along with bestowing a unique skill, ricochet shooting, allowing him to strike targets not in direct line of sight. To achieve this, he needed to complete the current quest and accrue 4 additional level points. The ancient gunslinger's pistol could ultimately be advanced to the legendary John pistol, enhancing all attributes by 200% and granting a lock-on skill for precise shots with a guaranteed hit rate. It would also feature an instant shooting ability, enabling the wielder to teleport along the bullet's trajectory. Yang Jin scrutinized his newly upgraded weapon, a sense of dissatisfaction creeping in. Had the appearance of his firearm remained unchanged despite the enhancements? Would he need to expend points on a cosmetic upgrade? Just then, the distant crack of gunfire shattered the air. A man, frozen in terror, met his end as a bullet erupted from the barrel of a mercenary named Hat, affiliated with the Fong family. Observing the corpse with disdain, Hat remarked that the unfortunate soul should have fled. His life had been squandered, and he had wasted a bullet on a worthless target. One of the soldiers addressed Hat, inquiring about the fate of a woman seated on the ground who trembled in fear. Hat, with a sinister grin, pondered her fate, casting a calculating glance her way. Meanwhile, the protagonist lurked behind a nearby tree, observing the scene unfold. He noted 5 armed soldiers, one brandishing a revolver, all clad in military attire. Now at level 3, he recognized the advantage his upgraded weapon bestowed upon him. Hat, approaching the frightened girl, leered at her, questioning whether she would disrobe willingly or if he needed to assist her. She looked up, tears marking her cheeks, as he extended a hand, claiming he had not encountered such beauty in ages. Suddenly, a bullet tore through Hat's head, and the protagonist sprang from his concealment, unleashing a hail of gunfire upon the remaining soldiers. Initially startled, they quickly shifted their focus to their assailant. The protagonist, relentless, dispatched several more foes before reloading and emerging into the open, finishing off the last of the soldiers. He then settled beside the girl, who braced herself for whatever fate awaited her, resigned to endure the consequences of being saved by a seemingly charming rescuer. At that moment, a system notification materialized before Yang, presenting an emergency task: save the victim. Completion would grant him 2 valuable level points. Puzzlement etched his brow as he pondered the absurdity of the quest. He was certain he had vanquished all the Fong family's soldiers, yet, before he could dwell further, Shochi pointed in horror behind him, warning of imminent danger. The silhouette of Hat loomed, transformed into something monstrous, devoid of humanity, as he grinned and proclaimed that he had come to understand what it was like to take a bullet to the head, an experience he found oddly pleasurable. He had become complacent, believing that a mere human could not vanquish him. But as Hat's laughter echoed, the girl's anxiety heightened, and she struggled to suppress her nausea, before retching and retreating from the scene, declaring that she could not bear to witness such terror. Hat crouched, incredulous, and then lunged at the protagonist, aiming to deliver a powerful blow. The impact crumpled the trailer's structure, and Hat remarked on the fragility of humans, likening them to thin sheets of paper. Turning his attention back to Shochi, he prepared to make her his next target, but suddenly found himself hindered, unable to advance. His confusion morphed into rage as he realized his hand was trapped. As he cursed vehemently, he stumbled toward the breach he had created, only to find Yang Jin clenched in a defiant stance within the trailer. Hat gasped, incredulous that a mere human could thwart his assault. Yang Jin seized the opportunity, yanking him closer and delivering a powerful knee strike to his abdomen, sending Hat crashing against the tree trunk with enough force to leave a dent. As Hat knelt, bewildered, he questioned how an ordinary individual could possess such strength. Was he a zombie soldier? Yet, he lacked the familiar scent of the undead. Noticing his disorientation, Shochi peered into the trailer, her expression one of disbelief. Meanwhile, Yang Jin closed the distance, aiming his gun at Hat's head, demanding to know the origin of the zombie soldiers. Hat, with a sinister smile, divulged that they were high-level military units created through the fusion of furious zombies and humans, a revelation that sent a ripple of unease through Yang Jin. Hat began to exploit his abilities, realizing that the more he spoke, the more he could sow confusion. If he could distract Yang Jin long enough to strike, he might regain the upper hand. But Yang Jin's voice cut through the tension, demanding to know who had initiated the creation of these abominations. Hat, smirking, named Fong Wang, the head scientist of the Fong family's research laboratory. The mention of the name rekindled Yang Jin's anger, while Hat inwardly reveled in the doubt he perceived, believing he could turn the tide in his favor. Suddenly, Yang Jin's fingers squeezed the trigger, sending another bullet straight through Hat's head. The shock of the unexpected shot reverberated through Hat's mind as he questioned the audacity of his attacker. As he collapsed, he pondered the folly of youth, lamenting the lack of honor in modern combat. Before Hat could finish his lament, Yang Jin fired again and again, his fury manifesting in each shot. The Fong family had become a source of incessant irritation, and he relished the thought of obliterating them. As the bullets found their mark, the system chimed, signaling the completion of the task. Rewarded with 2 level points, and an additional point for filling his experience bar, Yang Jin felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him. With newfound clarity, he decided to invest 1 point into his own leveling, reserving the remainder for future endeavors. His level ascended to 4, along with an enhancement of his attributes, which included the acquisition of a novel skill, point recycling. This ability allowed him to siphon level points from upgraded targets, resulting in their degradation. The cooldown for this remarkable skill stood at 24 hours, fortifying his resolve as he prepared for the challenges that awaited him in this perilous world. The young woman observed him gazing vacantly into the ether. Intrigued, she approached, inquiring as to what had captivated his attention. He turned away from her, striding towards the lifeless form nearby, assuring her that she was in no peril and should depart. Yet, a sudden surge of irritation coursed through him as he felt her grasp his leg. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she lamented the possibility of encountering nefarious individuals on her return journey. Could a gallant hero like him permit such a beauty to suffer indignities again? Common zombies posed no significant threat, but the more volatile ones could spring forth unexpectedly, instilling fear. Thus, she pleaded for him to accompany her, revealing that her grandfather was the village headman, and he would be handsomely compensated for his services. At that moment, a system notification materialized before Yang, presenting a side quest to safely deliver this pink-haired damsel back to her village, with 2 experience points as a reward. He paused, musing that real-life endeavors could indeed be integrated into the system. Accepting the mission, he led her to a junkyard, where she expressed confusion over their location, stating it was far removed from her village. He replied that he sought a vehicle, to which she countered that these cars had rotted away for a decade. What use could he have for them? Suddenly, he spotted a seemingly suitable automobile and approached it, noting its marginally better condition despite lacking an engine. She, perplexed, waved her arms in disbelief, either blinded by confusion or by the fact that the car was indeed engineless. He chuckled awkwardly, finding humor in the situation. He then touched the vehicle, activating his enhancement ability, which caused it to radiate a luminous glow. She shielded her eyes and questioned what transpired. Once the brilliance subsided, she was astounded to see the engineless wreck transformed into a sleek sports car. In shock, she exclaimed that it was mere illusion. They climbed into the vehicle and hit the roadhouse, where she marveled at the interior, declaring that in their era, only the affluent in Dawn City could afford such a luxurious ride. This man, a veritable magician, not only rescued damsels but also transmuted refuse into riches, clearly a hero sent from the heavens. He regarded her with a peculiar look, before sighing and dismissing her praise, asserting he was merely an ordinary fellow with no affinity for the F family. She introduced herself and inquired about his name. He obliged, elucidating the significance of his name. Suddenly, a rock flew past them, and he grew anxious, jerking the steering wheel to the right and cautioning her to brace herself. Alarmed, she asked what was amiss, just as a colossal boulder crashed beside them. Turning back, she glimpsed an enraged zombie of indeterminate level, its body encrusted in debris. The creature hoisted a rock and hurled it skyward before swinging a bat. The protagonist swiftly maneuvered the steering wheel again, evading the attack. She revealed that this furious zombie was a common sight in the vicinity. He scolded her for not mentioning it sooner, and she sheepishly admitted it had slipped her mind. They needed a plan to dispatch the hulking menace. They couldn't persist in dodging the flying projectiles indefinitely. 2 paths lay ahead, left or right. She advised him to take the right, where a passable road awaited, albeit pockmarked. When he inquired about the left, she insisted they avoid it, as it led to a canyon with a recently collapsed bridge. An idea sparked in his mind, and he pressed the gas, veering left despite her protests that it was folly. He grimly declared they would face death together, prompting her to panic and frantically pull at the door handle, demanding to be let out. He maintained a smirk, reminding her of his promise to escort her to the village without abandoning her halfway. Just then, the furious zombie hurled several stones at them, none striking their mark as they approached the ruined bridge. They drove onto the structure, reaching its edge, which sent her heart racing. Yet, he merely grinned, extending his arm out the window to touch the railing. Utilizing his enhancement skill, he restored the bridge in an instant, enabling them to cross safely. Peering out in astonishment, she questioned if he could truly perform such feats. Suddenly, he slammed the brakes, spinning the vehicle to a stop as the furious zombie charged toward them. She clutched her head, urging him to flee, but he simply waved at the creature, beckoning it closer. The monster retaliated by tossing a rock into the air and preparing to swing its bat. Yet, at the critical moment, it lost its footing and plummeted into the canyon along with fragments of the bridge. Yang had employed his new deterioration skill, effectively demolishing the bridge once more. The system confirmed the completion of the point processing, awarding him an experience point. Dumbfounded, she asked if he had truly vanquished the creature. He clarified that no experience was granted. Furious zombies were not so easily dispatched. She appeared baffled by his explanation, but he urged her to accelerate, as the zombie might soon resurface. She reassured him that such an occurrence was improbable, as furious zombies typically remained within their designated territories, allowing them to navigate resource searches unscathed. He inquired whether the Fong family monopolized all resources, to which she replied affirmatively. Their mercenary corps seized everything, while only a meager 20% was left for the villagers. He scoffed at the absurdity of it all, and 80% confiscation was an outrageous demand. Exhausted, she reclined and closed her eyes, indicating that their family provided protection against zombies in exchange for the plundered resources. As they traveled, two vehicles approached, and she excitedly identified them as the Fung family's convoy.